All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. But today, not to the podcast. We are doing something a little bit different today. There's been a lot of talk in the community about the cost of farming now that we have all these super juicy dungeons that everybody wants to farm nonstop, etc., etc. And most people are pretty much just bottoming out on their crystals after farming for like a day or two and then going, okay, now what? Like, we've got all this cool new content, awesome new dungeons, boosted up rates, all that wild stuff. And we don't have the crystals to farm it, right? So basically what I've done here is I've created a Excel spreadsheet that just kind of breaks down the cost of crystals and effectively how much it would cost you to farm 500 crystals, paid crystals a day, right? So that's after you've burnt through all of your free-to-play crystals, your siege, your all that stuff, right? If we just say at the end of the month, on average, you burnt through 500 paid crystals a day, how much would that cost you, right? And the number is pretty jarring, and we'll get to that, and we'll do all that. But I also want to talk about basically what you would have to make, like income-wise, in order to reasonably afford the amount that I'm about to show you. So if any of you guys are unfamiliar with me, I am an accountant by trade. I work in the finance department of a large company. And I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to this kind of like personal finance type of thing. And so this type of thing really interests me, but also I do think Com2Us has created quite a problem for themselves. The situation that they've put themselves in is really not that fixable, and I'll explain why in a second. But if anybody's wondering and going like, okay, well, what changed, right? Like, you could burn through 500 crystals a day before it reloaded. You could burn through 1,000 crystals a day before reloaded, right? That aspect of it hasn't really changed. So why is there all of a sudden a problem? Well, the problem is Com2Us has increased the incentive to farm, right? So people who weren't farming 500 crystals per day are feeling a lot more pressured to want to farm 500 crystals a day because it's extremely lucrative, right? You go into the abyss and you have crazy drop rates. You get more purple runes, more legend runes, everything, right? So it's this weird thing where it's like the cost of crystals has not changed since Reloaded, right? And the cost per run has only changed slightly. But the real change is people's incentive to farm and people's, desire to farm, I guess you could say. And there's also an issue of when you have all these dungeons that drop really, really good runes very, very frequently, like these new Abyss Hard dungeons and their purple rates is insane. Well, every time you get a good rune, you then, as a result of that, have to go get yourself grinds and gems for that rune. And simultaneously with releasing the Abyss, they made grinding for gems and grinds even more difficult. They're actually harder to acquire and take more time, more crystals. And it's just brutal. It's a double whammy, right? You're incentivized to get into this Abyss dungeon. You're incentivized to blow all your energy there, blow all your crystals there. But then once you're done with that and you have all these new runes, now you got to go get gems and grinds, and those are going to take you even more energy than the runes took. Significantly more energy, to be honest with you. So yeah, to just get into this, basically the way that I'm calculating the crystal cost is basically the average amount of crystals that you get out of a $100 pack. It's about 2,600. Some of them give more, some of them give less, hence the word average. And then this is the amount that a $100 pack costs in USD using the average sales tax rate in America. Obviously, if you wanted to calculate a more accurate number for yourself, you would just change the sales tax rate to whatever translates to your particular state, right? Maybe you live in New Hampshire, you don't have sales tax, great. But yeah, that's just using the country's average. So basically it works out to 24.43 crystals per $1 spent. And then we have down here 500 crystals per day. This is your cost per day. Okay, pretty simple. So moving on to the next tab here, we just have the monthly cost. Pretty simple, 365 days in a year, 12 months in a year, averages out to 30.42 days a month. And this would be your cost of farming for the month, okay? So, obviously looking at that, that's a pretty jarring number, right? Because we're not even talking about chasing LDs. We're not talking about whaling on re-apps or rune packs or anything like that, right? We are simply saying this is the cost to just play. And not only just play, but play the worst part of the game, right? The tedious part, the farming and the content that feels like a chore, right? This is your cost to do chores in Summoner's War per month, if you want to put it that way. Which is just insane, obviously, right? This is obviously insane. But I do want to kind of put some context on this. So as you can probably see, I've got 2 more tabs at the bottom of this, right? So basically, if you wanted to follow like a simple individual budgeting rule of thumb, where it's like roughly 50% of your needs, your needs equal roughly 50% of your take-home income, your wants equal roughly 30% of your take-home income, and then you invest and save 20% of your take-home income, right? That's just like a general rule of thumb a lot of people follow, okay? So this first tab I've got here, this is basically how much you would have to make a year and take home a month to afford this monthly cost while not spending more than 30% of your monthly income, okay? So this is under the assumption that you literally put towards this game the worst part of the game. This is just assuming you just want to keep farming Summoner's War, right? And you put 30% of your income, your entire wants category, directly into Come to Us's pocket. This is what your yearly salary would have to be, right? Which obviously this is nothing crazy. This is far below the median salary in the United States. So it's nothing too extreme, but obviously this is putting 30% of your income towards Summoner's War. I hope you don't need me to tell you this, but don't do that, okay? Please don't do that. So the next tab here is where you would likely want to be, okay? If even the number 5%, and I have these numbers hidden for a second here, okay? Let's talk about this. Even putting 5% of every single dollar that you earn over the course of a year directly into Come to Us's pockets, that's still pretty extreme, right? You're giving them a lot of fucking money, right? But what would your salary have to be in order to afford Come to Us's monthly cost of farming and not go over 5% of your monthly and yearly income? Okay, let's take a look at this. So you would have to take home on a monthly basis $12,450.87. Okay, basically your yearly pre-tax salary has to be $213,000. This is just to be a well-adjusted adult who only spends 5% of their income on this stupid gacha game, which, you know, I mean, I hate to give you guys the cold water here, but like, well-adjusted adults are not necessarily the gacha market's target audience, we should say, to put it lightly. So they're obviously, Come to Us has no interest of getting to this point where like every single one of their players is only spending, you know, on average 5% of their income And yeah, just being well-adjusted, responsible adults, right? That is not their goal. That's not what they're after. They want you to spend way more than that, of course, like any company would, but eventually you're going to hit a breaking point where it's just going to get too expensive to the point that people are going to quit. And that's the result none of us want to see. Comp to us doesn't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I like this game. I like making content on this game. That's not where I want to see it go. That's not where they want to see it go, obviously. So obviously something has to change, right? And so if we just go in and we kind of fudge the numbers here a little bit to kind of figure out like where we would want them to sort of get the game to, like, what do we think is like a reasonable number, okay? So I like to stick on this 5% thing. I'm a fanatic about my budgeting and my finances. And so 5% is personally what I use as that is my monthly, not even Summoners, that's my like monthly gaming fund, right? So my subscription to old school RuneScape comes out of my 5%. If I want to buy Hearthstone packs, that comes out of my 5%. If I want to buy Summoners War packs, that comes out of my 5%, right? And I'm a fanatic about this stuff, and I stick to it, right? But let's just say Comp to Us is never trying to get down to that number, because that it's just not going to happen, right? So let's just say they want to go 10%, right? Okay, so we're getting a little better. It's still, this is extreme. This is way above the median average in the United States, as far as salary is concerned. Nearing double, basically. Last I checked, at least. I probably should have looked that up before I came on here, but I think it's roughly like 60-ish thousand. And so, I mean, this is still extreme, right? And that's if 10% of every single fucking dollar that you make goes straight into Comp to Us pocket, right? The Comp to Us tax, as I've called it up here. So that's still ridiculous. So what else can we do, right? How can we get that to a different, we still want to farm 500 a day, right? We want to get those runs in. We want to get our loot. They just gave us all these awesome new dungeons. Like, we want to fucking do them, right? Like, it's pretty simple. So what if we just say, straight up, they double the amount of crystals that you get out of a pack on average, right? So 5,200. Okay, that's a little bit more reasonable, right? That's going to drop our cost down, obviously cut it in half. All right, so that's great. So only $311 a month. Still a car payment, but okay, beside the fact. So let's see. Okay, so 30% back on that original one. I mean, yeah, this salary, I mean, we're talking about part-time cashier at the local grocery store, right? Is roughly what this salary would equal out to. But still, yet again, this is donating Comp to Us 30% of your income. I don't care what your living situation is, 30% of your income should not be going to Comp to Us, okay? So let's pop back over to here where we adjusted it to 10%. Okay, we're getting there, right? So we now have the pre-tax under, I should have looked this number up because I'm not sure, but pretty sure this is under the median salary in the United States, I think, right? I hope I'm not wrong about that, because otherwise this whole point makes no fucking sense. But this is where you would want to see Comp to Us roughly get it to, in my opinion. Now, for a lot of people, they're still going to look at this and go, this is extreme, right? Like, I know I'm not spending 10% of my income. I don't care what my income is. I don't care how well off I am or not. 10% of your income should not be going to a gacha game, but assuming it is, and that's probably where they want you to be. I mean, hell, they'll take 100% of your income if you'll give it to them. This, I think, is we've roughly found where they want to kind of get, right? If they can squeeze 10% of the average salary of a United States citizen out of every person that plays Summoners War, they're looking pretty good, right? But I think the issue here is, like, we doubled the crystals in every pack. I mean, newsflash, that's not going to happen. I mean, like, I wish it would, but that's never going to happen. So realistically, what can they do? And this is why at the beginning of the video I kind of alluded to, they kind of put themselves in an unfixable position here. Because you're not going to make the content worse, right? And actually that reminds me of another point I wanted to make. I think how we got in this situation is when they originally released the Abyss, if you guys remember, the drops kind of sucked, right? They were better than Giants B12, but the runs were slower and they weren't enough better to justify the energy cost and the slower runs, right? But I think that was what Abyss was supposed to be, right? And it wasn't supposed to be this mass exodus of like, everybody get out of Giants B10, get into Abyss hard. They weren't trying to do that. They were trying to make a really hard dungeon that had slightly better drops, cost you a little bit more energy, but took you longer. And that's probably where they wanted it to be, realistically, right? But of course, they got massive blowback. Every YouTuber and their dad made a video. These drops suck. This whole reloaded patch was just a waste of time and effort and development. It's like everyone was just losing their minds, right? So then Comto's like, fuck. Now we got to up the rates and they reduced the entry cost of an Abyss hard run. And now all of a sudden, 9 energy cost for this drastic increase in drops. There is that max exodus of like everybody out, nobody in GB10 anymore, everybody out, get in Abyss hard, right? And then people's crystals fucking evaporated. And then this is where you run into an issue when you're calm to us. You've created this place that everybody wants to be, but not everybody can afford. Because let's put this back down to 2600 where we actually are, right? Let's go back into the land of realism here. And let's, like I said, you really shouldn't be spending 10% of your income. I mean, I'm not here to be your dad, right? But once people get around to realizing how much it's going to realistically cost them to maintain farming in this game, that combined with the incentive to farm these dungeons, it's going to crush the game. I mean, it just is. Like, what other outcome is there? You know what I mean? They're not going to nerf the drops to get people out of Abyss and make people want to farm less, right? There's no way they're going to do that because that would just piss everybody off. They're not going to double the crystals in every pack, so that's not a solution. So what do they do? I mean, I really don't have an answer for it. But they've got to find a way to at least bring it closer to where people are feeling like. Another thing that we should talk about, it's like, what is 500 crystals a day, right? If you're somebody who doesn't really farm all that much, 500 crystals is roughly 4-ish hours of farming. The reason I say roughly is because the speed of your team matters. The dungeon in which you're farming matters, right? 4 hours of Rift Beast is not equal to 4 hours of R5, right? If you're doing 27-second R5, you're probably 500 crystals is probably like 3 hours. Seriously. So, I mean, this really isn't that extreme of a number. Like, I mean, imagine if you're somebody who's got 8 hours a day to farm, right? You farm at work. Now you're doing 1,000 crystals a day. Now, when putting 30% of your monthly income into Summoner's War, you need to have a salary of $71,000, significantly above the median income in the United States. If you want to be a responsible adult and only put 5% of your income into Summoner's War, you now have to make $426,000 a year in salary. Bro, you got to make the minimum contract in the NBA. You need to get on an NBA team to afford to reasonably farm 1,000 crystals a day, which is why I didn't want to make that the number that we talked about, because that's fucking insane. Right? At that point, just forget it. Don't even think about even if you have the time, don't even think about spending 1,000 crystals a day in paid crystals. But yeah, just I mean that's I just wanted to talk about that. I mean, I wanted to make this video more just like the straight numbers of it. Um, not so much my opinion on what they can do and can't do and to fix it and all that stuff, because I really don't know. They've really kind of fucked themselves over. I just wanted to give the straight numbers using averages like 500 crystals a day and the average cost of crystals, right? If you buy, by the way, if you buy $30 packs instead of $106 packs, you're paying even more, right? Like all these numbers change, right? Your cost of crystals changes even more, gets even higher. So there's a lot of factors. I just kind of wanted to use the average and just kind of give you guys this information, and then you can kind of, decipher from it what you will. But yeah, I mean, that's about it. I'll see you guys later. And also drop a like, comment, all that good stuff if you want to see more videos like this. I love making stuff like this. Like I said, I'm a finance nerd. I enjoy this kind of stuff. So yeah, let me know. Peace out.